Hello, guys, and welcome to Odds Serie A Match Day 27. And it's a happy match day, I'm sure, for the Milan teams. We have both teams. Danny is the only city in the world with two European champions, Milan, and this is a very exciting match day. Derby della Capitale, Derby d'Italia, Danny.
Ciao Edu, I mean, no other city in the world could say that. Quarterfinalists for the first time, Inter and Milan since 2006. Will there be a derby? Well, we'll find out, obviously, on the Friday draw for the Champions League. But yeah, Inter grinded out a result in Do Dragao. I think in the end, in 180 minutes, they deserve to qualify. Let's see what happens. Of course, we don't know whether Napoli are going to join them or not. We're recording this on a Wednesday. I'm pretty sure they are. So 3 out of 8, not bad.
Not bad at all for the Italian football, and still things to be decided, especially the European spots in Serie A. So let's analyze this match day. Remember, guys, as always, I ask you to leave your comments, your tips, and of course, just support us. Press the like and subscribe. So we are more, Danny. We reach a new milestone with 15,000 subscribers. So let's try to keep growing. Let's start with the games we have on Friday. We have two. We have Sassuolo, Spezia, and Sassuolo, now that they are completely safe, is the entertaining team that they've always been, but not this season. Danny, 3 consecutive victories. Good victory at the Olimpico, 4-3, entertaining game, punishing Roma's mistakes in defense. And for Spezia, was a massive victory against Inter. They are now 5 points above relegation.
And both teams, I think, they took advantage of the fact that Roma had just played midweek against Real Sociedad, and Inter was going to play against Porto. So obviously, they did have something more than their oppositions. But, you know, Sassuolo is such a difficult team to play at this stage of the season every year because they are virtually saved. It is a team that likes to attack. So really, they cut open through the middle of Roma, through the midfield, and really hurt them. Loriente, 2 goals, now 7 goals and 6 assists for Sassuolo this season for the debutant. And, you know, in the last 7 games, Sassuolo, they are second only to Napoli, 16 points out of 21. Best attack in the last 7 games, Sassuolo, with 15 goals scored. And, you know, they often concede goals. They often leave gaps at the back. But this is a stat that you would never believe. But go and check it. Consigli, the Sassuolo goalkeeper, is the goalkeeper that had to make less saves in Serie A. 49, maybe because sometimes the shot he faced were too difficult to stop and he conceded them. But, you know, Sassuolo, it is a team that when they are in form, they can really defend by keeping the ball. On the other hand, Drongoschi, the Spezia goalkeeper, was the main man for the win against Inter. A lot of good saved the penalty against Lautaro Martinez, and is actually the third goalkeeper alongside his replacement Zot and Marchetti for numbers of saves in Serie A. So obviously Spezia, it is a side that is often on the defending, but now, thanks to the win against Inter, they can breathe a little bit more. Friday game on the afternoon, a bit strange time. I'm going to go for a home win and over 1.5 goals, which combined pays 233.
6:30 p.m. Local time, indeed, a strange time. And also on Friday, we have Atalanta, Empoli, 2 teams that are in bad form. Only 1 point for Atalanta in the last 4 games. And now, Danny, they are risking to get out of the European spots. Juventus, they are only 4 points behind. They have to win this one.
Yeah, because they haven't scored in the last 3, lost the last 3. Actually, if you look at the numbers, they lost 4 of the last 6, so only 4 points out of 18 collected. But against Napoli, where they were defeated 2-0, they played well. It was a very intense game. They kind of did what Lazio did the week before, so they pressed high, tried to shut the Napoli middle. In the end, they crumbled under the pressure of Napoli, you know, that magnificent goal of Kvaratskhelia, but good signs for Atalanta, I think, who at least deserved a goal there. But they need to bounce back, really, if they want to try at least to keep touch with the European position, because Juventus is coming back, even with the minus 15 points deduction, is really close to Atalanta now. Empoli also lost the last 3, but should have scored at least 1 against Udinese. You know, I think Silvestri was the man of the match there, missed a few chances as well. An interesting proposition is Empoli, young, like to keep the ball, go forward, cannot really defend a lot, but they are very dangerous as when they attack. They got the likes of Baldanzi, for example, of course, Satriano, and another player, Bandinelli. They're really good to watch. No wins in the last 7 games since they beat Inter away. Only 3 points collected in the last 7 games. So that would be a relegation form. I think the home side, for as much as we know, when they play at the Stadio Azzurro d'Italia, they are not extremely reliable. They should bounce back and they should win this one. The value for me is in Atalanta to start well and win the first half, which pays 208.
And on Saturday, we have a clash between 2 teams that got promoted last season, Monza and Cremonese, but they are doing completely different in this season. Cremonese already almost in Serie B with only 1 victory at home against Roma. So, Danny, we can understand why Monza, comfortable in the middle of the table, getting good results in the previous games, they are favorites also to win this one.
Monza are going to stay in Serie A. Cremonese are going to go back to Serie B after a long absence from the top division. They lost 2-0 against Fiorentina. Bit of a step back for Cremonese, who have been more solid recently under Ballardini and yet managed to score goals. This time they didn't. Some bad defending against Cremonese. They conceded 15 in the last 7, so they will be the worst defense, but they are the worst defense in general. Second from bottom for possession, Cremonese. They don't keep the ball very well, but 8th for shots. So that means they don't keep the ball well, but when they can, they shoot on goal, they shoot on target, they're very direct. It doesn't mean that's always the best option. If you don't keep the ball well, and when you can, you shoot, and actually you don't score that many. Means there is something missing there. But on the other hand, Monza's got a lot of quality. Second good result after 2 defeats. They went behind and after 2 minutes equalized with Sensi. Actually, they had the best chances against Verona. Should have won. Another assist from Carlos Augusto, 4 goals and 4 assists this season. Second team in Serie A for possession, Monza, behind Napoli. I know possession doesn't mean everything, but normally the team who play well and the team who are at the top have got good possession stat, because that means they can also rest and defend with the ball. Cremonese win, no. Monza win doesn't pay awfully well. I'm going to go for an Asian handicap corners minus 1.5 for Monza. So Monza to take at least 2 more corners than Cremonese. They got more quality. They'll be attacking more. It might be a comfortable win. So I'm going to go for the Asian handicap corner here.
All right, and then we have Salernitana Bologna, important game for Salernitana especially, but they are getting farther and farther from the relegation. Now it's 7 points, surprising draw against Milan, really surprising one. So no defeats in the last 3 games for Salernitana. Danny, what happened with them? They are now in the good track to stay in Serie A.
Paulo Sousa has given them a little bit more structure, given a little bit more belief, confidence that they got good players, because they do have good players, especially up front and midfield, and they can play football. But obviously, this is also the Champions League effect, playing Milan after they drew against Spurs in a difficult game, although they played on Monday night, was always going to be slightly easier for whoever played them against. And they show great spirit at San Siro. They had chances in the first half. Yes, of course, in the end, they were saved by Ochoa, who kept the ball out basically on the line. But I think they were worth the point. And now at home, last home game, they won 3-0 against Monza. Let's see if they can continue the good run. Only 1 goal conceded in the last 3 with Paulo Sousa. Bologna, on the other hand, 0-0 against Lazio, but they definitely deserved to score. They had very good chances, especially with Moussa Barrow, who looks like a player that's been rejuvenated by Thiago Motta. He didn't score, but check the odds for Moussa Barrow to score, because he really came close against Lazio, and he was in form. In the last 7 games, Bologna, they will be 5th. So again, a great form shown by Thiago Motta, who's been voted February manager of the month in Serie A. The problem with Bologna, when they travel, terrible away defense, terrible record, even worse than Inter away. And yes, they don't really, they do struggle sometimes to keep the clean sheet. A bit of a statistical thing for you that you might want to go and check the corners market. Both sides are in the bottom 3 for corners taken, average 3.80 corners per game for Salernitana against 4. corners per game for Bologna, so an under 9 corners, 9.5 corners. It could be an interesting one if they don't manage to produce a lot of attacking phases, but I'm going to go for both teams to score because I think Bologna is always a threat, and I think under Thiago Motta they've been playing better, and Salernitana at home, they showed in the last few games they rediscover their attacking prowess, if you like. Both to score, 199.
Well, Bologna, they are the third team for both teams to score in Serie A, and as you mentioned, they conceded 24 goals this season playing away with 7 defeats for Bologna, and then we have Udinese. Milan, you've just mentioned how Milan dropped points on Monday against Salernitana, and Danny, they have to keep an eye also to the Serie A apart from the Champions League, because they have to qualify for the next season for the Champions League, only 1 point ahead of Roma, and their last trip to Florence was a defeat. It won't be easy in Udine. This is a way better Udinese than the one we saw at the beginning of 2023.
Similar with Sassuolo, Udinese now becomes very dangerous, especially if you play them after midweek games or after a tough run of fixtures, because they are saved, they've done the job early, they don't necessarily play for anything, they've got almost no objectives, so there is no pressure. And, there is a team that can still hurt you on the counter, is a physical side. They seem to have discovered a little bit of better physical form. It was only the second win for Udinese in the last 18 games when they beat Empoli at the weekend, back-to-back clean sheets, but don't look at these stats because in both games against Atalanta and Empoli, Silvestri, the goalkeeper, was phenomenal. Normally, however, they do not concede too many, actually. Silvestri only had to make 60 saves in Serie A, fourth goalkeeper for saves made. So that's a good indication that Udinese are quite solid. They do concede, but they don't concede too many, if you like. Milan, as I mentioned before, with the Salernitana, I think they struggled with the fact that they played Spurs midweek. They took the lead early with Giroud, 8th goal of the season for the Frenchman, who's going to miss this one, though, for a suspension. So who's going to play up front? This is the real rebus for Pioli, because Origi has been non-existent almost. Rebic is so inconsistent. They need a partner for Leao. So a little bit of turnover here. But Milan, I think, are going to struggle here to create a lot. They're also going to be without Messias, so it's going to be Salemakers on the right, still waiting for something from Charles De Ketelaere. They can't afford to lose in this game, but I think this is a symptom of the fact that Serie A level, somehow, despite we might have three teams in the Champions League, has gone down. I think there's been more of a squeeze towards the middle, apart from Napoli. Often teams who play in Champions League the following week, they do struggle to win against small teams. Some people say that this is good because that means the small teams are getting better. I don't think so. I think it's the opposite. I think it means the big teams have gone a little bit worse. So there's been a bit of a squeeze between the middle. After all, the second team in the league has got only 56 points. If I'm not wrong, is a very bad tally. Anyway, to come back to the game of the Friuli, under 1 goal in the first half, 192. So if there is only 1 goal in the first half, you get your money back. Otherwise, less than a goal, you win 192. More than a goal, you lose your stake.
Even less points, Danis. Inter, of course, the second in the standings with only 50 points, 8 defeats.
There you go, 50 points. I overestimated. So this is a tally.
8 defeats.
8 defeats, it's a lot. And this is a tally that any other year, 2, 3, 4 years ago, with 50 points after 26 games, you would have been third, fourth, probably fighting for between the fourth and fifth spot. So it has been, I think it is, okay, Napoli have been phenomenal, but other teams have not been able to keep pace with it. Because, I think that the overall quality has gone down.
Well, talking about quality going down and poor teams, let's talk about Sampdoria. Verona, probably they will see each other next season, but in Serie B, Verona still some hope, 5 points away from Spezia, but they need to win. The draw is not anymore good. It was a step backward, I would say, the draw against Monza, also against Spezia, winless in the last 4. And for Sampdoria, Danny, it's true that they scored 2 against Juve, but we've been saying the whole season, or you've been saying, no, that they lack quality in attack. Only 13 goals scored in this area.
They are well organized. They stay well on the pitch, and obviously with Stankovic, they have more of a fighting spirit. And you can tell you can see what the Serbian manager has given them is the lack of quality, of course, and the fact they do concede goals from set pieces. They switch off at the back. They can keep the ball very well. Juventus hit the post 3 times. They also missed a penalty. They could have scored a couple more actually. And Sampdoria still winless at home against the team they should beat for one reason or another. Sometimes it's also bad luck, like in the game against Bologna, they missed the penalty. Against Udinese, they conceded in the very last minute. They still can win. So now again is another last opportunity for Sampdoria. The good news for them is they find a team that after they bounce back a little bit at the beginning of the year, now they lack something. I think it's also because they miss Ngonge up front, who they signed in January, and it's been a good revelation. Scored 3 goals, and given something more. They're also missing Henry. They are struggling, Verona, and against Monza. Yes, I mean they should have been well beaten. Their away record is also very bad. Verona, no wins away. These are the 2 worst attack of Serie A. So I think Sampdoria really cannot lose this one against a team that scores a little bit more than them, but really hasn't scored much. And as I said, away, they've been really, really poor. I'm going to go for an Asian handicap 0 for the home side, 215. Hopefully it doesn't let us down as it's done many times. But yeah, Sampdoria Asian handicap 0, 215. If they draw, you get your money back.
Yeah, usually these games end up in a draw. Actually,
normally,
both teams to lose. Normally, so if there is a draw, you get your money back. If Sampdoria win, you win your stake, according to Danny's tip. And then we have Fiorentina, Lecce. We have Fiorentina in the best moment of the season, also focus in the European football. On Thursday, they have to play against Sivasspor, but also, Danny, they are getting good results in Serie A. 3 consecutive victories for Lecce, 3 consecutive defeats.
3 consecutive defeats for Lecce without scoring. That's the concern there. And they didn't start the game very well against Torino. They were 2-0 after 30 minutes. Didn't create a lot either. So I think Lecce need to be concerned because it's a side that soaks up a lot of the pressure, defend a lot, to spend a lot of time in their own box. But if they don't find the odd goals in the counter-attack, I think they can get sucked into relegation scrap, really. You can never be saved if you don't have a decent defense or a goal difference that is not too terrible. If you're going like beyond -20, -22 goal difference, really you're gonna struggle. For this one, Lecce are gonna struggle even more because they're gonna be without probably the best player so far this season, Jumlan, the midfielder, and I think he's gonna move to a big team next season. But he's suspended he's gonna knock. He might be out. Fiorentina unbeaten in 7 games in all competition. Let's see what happens against Sivasspor in the Conference League. They got a 1-0 lead into a home, so I think they're gonna qualify. 6 wins and a draw in all competition recently. Since February, 7 wins out of 10 games. Only Juventus has similar numbers, and the difference with Fiorentina is now they become clinical. Before, it took them an awful lot of shots to score, and now they are finding the net easier. They're scoring good goals, good combination. I think Italiano has found the balance in midfield also with the addition of Mandragora, who now plays more regularly. They score, of course, at the weekend. So yeah, they are in the best moment of the season, and I think this could be a scoring game with few goals. So I'm going to go for over 1 goal in the first half, 207. So if it's only 1-0 in the first half, you get your money back. More than a goal in the first half, 207.
And we have 3 more games, 3 great games. Yes. Actually, the first one, Torino-Napoli, with Torino getting closer to the European spots, with Napoli having to play Champions League. They got an important victory in Serie A after the defeat against Lazio, against Atalanta. You've mentioned before that Napoli is the only team that is managing to play in Europe and then winning in Serie A, but this one is a tough one for Napoli.
Yes, it is a tough one because it comes after the game against Eintracht, which we don't know the result, but nonetheless, it's not going to be a simple game. It's a Champions League game against the side who won the Europa League last year, and Eintracht were very good away from home last year. So I think Napoli will have a gap of energies going into this one. In the last few games at home against sides that were physical, that they were well set up tactically, that were intense, Napoli, against Lazio and Atalanta, they found it hard. Lost one, won one, which I think is the fair results. But they did find it hard. They had to resort to a bit of magic from Gravascelli, a goal from a set piece from Rachmani. They were worthy winner against Atalanta, but it wasn't a walk in the park. And I think play Torino at the moment after a European night, it could be tricky because Torino are the kind of team that is well drilled, organized, everyone knows what they're doing, they're gonna press high, they're gonna be physical, they can also keep the ball well, they're sixth for ball possession, although they don't score many, only the 13 Serie A attack never scored more than 2, but they play some good stuff, and scored 2 against Lecce, 1-0 against Bologna, scored 2 in the derby against Juventus. It is a side that I think has improved this season against the odds and under Juric as well. So they're gonna be tactically astute. I think this is gonna be a low-scoring game. Actually, I'm gonna go for both to score no. So if it's a Napoli win, it could be a 1-0 win for Napoli. But I can't. I'm almost leaning towards a double chance for Torino, which is not the end of the world for Napoli. They could win the title with 5 games to spare. But I got both to score now. Plays 183. It might not be a classic, this one.
Well, 18 points gap from between Napoli and Inter, so for sure they can afford to lose this one or to drop points in this game. Then we have Derby della Capitale. Is very important this season because they are fighting to get into the Champions League spots. Both are playing this game after games in Europe, and Lazio in this stage of the season, at least in Serie A, Dani, they are slightly better than Roma because of the victory in Napoli, because they are ahead in the standings, because they won also the first game between these two teams in the first part of the season. And Roma is still unknown, no, Dani? They are able to perform well in Europe, especially when they are playing at home, and then lose in Cremona, lose against the Sassuolo.
Look, I think the game Roma lost against Sassuolo, it was a bit of a freakish game. It came after the very good win against Real Sociedad. Roma had to make a few changes in formation, starting without Pellegrini, without Cristante, without Dybala. And they looked a little bit tired, but somehow even a little bit too nervous. I think the issue with Mourinho, whose suspension got rescinded and then reinstated, and the social media post with the handcuff and all the polemics as against them, I think he overcharged the environment a little bit. And Kumbulla, for example, was really nervous and got sent off and gave out a penalty. Normally they don't concede 4 goals at home. Actually, they conceded 4 in one go, as many as they conceded at home in the previous 11 in all competition. Then in the second half, with Dybala, things improved. Sassuolo deserved the win, but Roma should go back to their older self, really, although I think the game against Real Sociedad is going to be another tense one. I think Roma are going to suffer in Anoeta, and let's see. I think they qualify, but let's see what happens. Similar for Lazio, they're going to have a task, something to do, a job to do in the Netherlands against Z Alkmaar. They go from 1-2. Let's see what happens. Of course, when we record this video, we don't know the results of the Europa League and the Conference League. I think Lazio could qualify as well. But, both sides, they might come to this game a little bit tired. They did look tired at the weekend. Lazio, the good news is that they kept the 15 clean sheet of the season. Only Barcelona has kept more in the 5 major leagues with 18. 9 of these clean sheets for Lazio have been away from home, so really, really solid even when teams attack. The bad news for Lazio, actually a couple of bad news. First bad news is that Milinkovic-Savic has gone missing a little bit. No assist, actually no shots against Bologna. And they're going to be without Vecino, which is suspended, which is so important in the midfield of Sarri, because he does very well the 2 phases, also very good at pressing, and without Immobile. Now, without Immobile, I know that they can play the false 9 with Pedro, but really Lazio has got a bit of a gap there. They didn't buy in the summer somebody could replace him. They've been missing Immobile for so long this season, and this is probably what costed them being a bit closer to the second spot. Who loses this one doesn't go in Champions League. Who wins this one is not guaranteed they're going to go in Champions League either, but they got a bit of a chance here, okay? But they are very inconsistent, really, decided. Look, I do think if any of these sides go out of Europe, their chances of going to the Champions League will increase massively. Playing one game per week will massively increase the chances of both sides because they got a bit of a short squad, really. If they are both in Europe, it's not guaranteed, but obviously who wins this one, who loses this one, that doesn't go for me. First half draw, 2-3. I think is going to be a little bit of a sluggish start here. If I have to point who is more likely to win this one, I would go for Roma because I think overall they got better quality up front at the moment, but I'm going to go for a first half draw, 2-3.
Well, perhaps it's Milan, no? The one dropping from the Champions League spots, and Lazio and Roma, they can both qualify.
Could be. We'll see.
We'll see. Exactly. Then we expect Inter to be qualified for the next Champions League. Otherwise, Inzaghi, if he's already in trouble, I'm sure he's going to be fired immediately. Derby d'Italia is our last game. Inter-Juve, always very interesting. Both teams also playing in Europe because Inter, they will be very happy after suffering in the Dragao, but also Juve, they have to play on Thursday in the Europa League. Danny, 5 victories in the last 6 games for Juve in Serie A, and we have Inter that even if their season is not very good, they are winning the very important games this season, especially at home. They've been quite reliable this season.
And once again, they showed that when the backs were against the wall, they reacted. They needed a brave performance, a courageous performance, a solid performance in Portugal, and they did it. That was exactly what Simone Inzaghi asked them after the shocking defeat at Spezia. So once again, this season we've seen, for example, when they had to face Barcelona, Inzaghi was under pressure. They delivered. When they had to face Milan at home in the derby, the same. So they did manage to bounce back. They seem to motivate themselves only in big games. And of course, in Italy, there's no bigger game than the Derby d'Italia. But let's not forget, recently, Inter numbers, especially going forward, had not been great. Against Porto, they didn't create great, clear-cut chances, and they were saved by the heroics in the end of Dumfries, who cleared the ball off the line. But credit to Inter for sticking to the task, and also credit to the old guard of Inter, Mkhitaryan, Darmian, Acerbi, old in the sense that a little bit old with the age. All these players bought as a free transfer, and they showed how important is experience in these sort of games. But yeah, a defeat this season is a negative record, really something that nobody would have expected. And now they play Juventus, who, by the way, I think they're going to have a tough game in Freiburg against a side that is hard to break, often scores at home. I've got a very good home record. Freiburg only lost 1 game at home so far this season, so let's see how it goes. I think they will qualify, but it won't be easy. But they won 4-2 at the weekend against Sampdoria. They scored 14 in the last 7 games, Juventus. Inter only scored 9 in Serie A. Juventus have been blessed by the return of some key players, although some of them are already injured, like Chiesa, for example, the good form of Di Maria. Rabiot scored his 9th goal of the season, 2 goals against Sampdoria. Very criticized at the beginning of the season. I think he's by far the best midfielder. The midfielder is more complete in terms of athleticism, in terms of physiques, in terms of scoring prowess. In the last 2 games, they hit the bar and the post 6 times. So 3 times against Sampdoria, missed the penalty with Vlahovic, who hit the post. 3 times against Roma. They're still going to be without Pogba, Milik, probably Alexandro. So a little bit of turnover. But Allegri has been very good at giving spaces to the young players. Fagioli, Miretti, Sualé, who scored the first goal in Serie A. Ealing. So, it is a Juventus side that has got strength in depth. this is going to be a high intensity game. Inter are going to be up for it, of course. Again, I think the fatigues of the Champions League games and the Europa League games are going to be felt, especially at the beginning. I'm going to go for an under 2.5 goals here, 182. Reverse fixture finished 2-0 for Juventus. These games are difficult to predict, but I think, yes, I think especially initially, first 30-35 minutes, unless there is an individual piece of brilliance, I don't think the game is going to be unlocked. Under 2.5 goals, 182 in the Derby Italia.
Two derbies to end this Sunday. What an exciting match day we have in Italy. Danny, let's listen to your safe bet for this weekend.
Sampdoria is not going to lose this one. Come on. Sampdoria Verona 1x. 157
with the blue cerchiata maglietta, la
maglietta
hopefully.
I mean, this year, every time I put something, I decide to go for Sampdoria. They always let me down. This is really last chance. I mean, against Verona, the worst away side in Serie A. You really cannot lose this one, can you?
We have Genoa in the second spot in Serie B, so maybe they cross their paths, and maybe we are talking about a Lazio derby in the region or in the city of Rome. Perhaps this is next season. We have three teams of
Frosinone.
Yeah, Frosinone. Yeah,
well,
Frosinone.
we had them before. We had them before when they were in Serie A, but yeah,
I remember.
Frosinone didn't last very long, but it's always something interesting. Yeah, probably Genoa, Frosinone. Who's the third one? Maybe Südtirol. Could be Südtirol, but there's also Palermo. Looking to get a playoff. Parma with Buffon, so it's always
speaking a bit of German in the Serie A.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, Danny, to your ACCA, just to finish the video.
Atalanta Empoli over 1.5 goals. Monza Cremonese double chance 1x. Udinese Milan under 3.5 goals. Torino Napoli under 2.5 goals. Total odds 373.
Write it down because Danny's always spot on, but lately even better with the ACCAs. Just a suggestion for you. Danny, thank you very much. See you for the Serie A in a couple of weeks. Of course, we have international break. And for everyone, don't forget, as always, to leave your tips, press the like and subscribe. See you, Danny. Bye-bye.
Ciao. See you soon.